live real quick. Hey, what's up, little man?
Oh, who's he? Space Monkey?
No, it's Mega Man.
Love you. All right, looks like we're live here. We're gonna get started. Doc Rannigan is tying up some loose ends, so he'll join us here in a few minutes. He tried to jump in via the road and told him got to secure that and get home safely and then jump in. So how goes it, Mr. Casey?
Good, man. It's so I got your agenda. Are we going live?
We're live now.
Oh, we're live. Hey. So I was looking at your agenda. I gotta find it.
Unprepared, Casey.
And I'm moving in the world of the digital age. You might have heard about it.
The real question is, do you have your board shorts on? Is that what you're wearing? Is that why you're looking so comfy? Where's the jacket today?
No, I'm chilling. I came home early to do this one in the casual comfort and to provide some much needed relief from the tykesters who are probably driving mama a little nutty.
They can do that.
They can do that. I mean, it is we are so lucky to be here. We are in this day and age of, the Rona hoax, virus. And we've got computers, technology, what have you. I mean, so many of us are blessed that we're working from home. And I got a stark reminder of how hard it's been on people in service industries that have been completely shut down and furloughed. And I feel really, truly blessed, not just every day, but especially today, speaking to somebody whose career and restaurant and what have you was just decimated by this pandemic.
Yeah. Well, here's something I would like to do. I would like to not focus on the pandemic and the negativity. And you and I were just talking yesterday about all the positivity that's going on while this is still taking place. And I think that we should be focused more on that. The businesses that we are friends, there you go. The businesses that we're friends with and that are in our close circles and even the outlying circles are booming right now. Businesses are booming. Myself, your business, Doc, Knucklehead, like all these people we know are not being overshadowed by this craziness because their businesses are booming. And that's what the focus should be. And that's what the RVBA, that's the importance of it. That's the whole primary reason why we do what we do. So when hard times come, we can maintain focus, positivity, and success. So with that being said, it kind of leads us into our topic today, which is failures in leadership. So we're going to spend a little bit of time going over some of these things. We have 10 of these, and we'll just kind of briefly go down one or the other, kind of talk a little bit about the other one. So thank you for those who are watching and joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and go on Facebook right now and do a little shareage on this. Did you find your little notes?
Oh yeah, no, I got it. I mean, there's this, feature you might have heard of it. It's you can do a split screen where I can look at the agenda and I can see you. Just kidding. I shouldn't give the audio. I
know a tech guy that can figure something out.
Who has saved my bacon? I don't know how many times. I'm just gonna shut up. No, I got it up. And failures of leadership. So this was inspired by listening to. I'm a big student of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, as well as many other books, including I'm reading one now by a Navy SEAL, David Goggins, called Can't Hurt Me. And I really challenge everybody listening to this, including you, Skinner, to check this book out, because this is a guy who Whew, man. I mean, you want to talk about pulling yourself up from the bootstraps. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a man who's the redefinition of bootstraps is really what's in order there. But anyway, failures of leadership are, you know, things that I have taken away and shared with you and Doc to talk about on
Yeah.
this show tonight. Titles. If you're focusing on titles, you know, I remember years ago when I was a younger attorney working for older attorneys in I thought it was a prestigious Dallas law firm or two.
Yeah.
And I had the fortune to work there, and I was, you know, earning my way up in the world and learning my craft and this, that, and the other. But I was so focused on the title of partner instead of earning the respect and, more importantly, doing the work that would get me my own clients. And
Yeah.
at some point I realized that title, that desire for title, was hollow. It was false. And
Absolutely.
that if I put in the work, I would get the respect. And more importantly, I would not only get the respect, but the phone would start ringing for me. People looking for me specifically, not looking for the law firm of, you know, Smith and Dewey, so they could
Yeah.
get you know, they wanted to hire Mr. Smith. I'm just throwing out a fake name there, but they weren't looking for Mr. Smith anymore. All of a sudden, when I stopped caring about that title that I had to have, that you know, hey man, you need to call me this because you need to call me senior attorney. You know, we used to have a joke about it in the military. You know, the HMFIC, right? Did you earn that? You earn that every day, or you
Absolutely.
don't,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I've had an engineering officer that absolutely nobody respected, and I've had other engineering officers. And you got to remember, the United States Coast Guard, we don't have a lot of zeros. We don't have the budget for them. We like our officers where they belong, back at headquarters. So almost all of your commanding, they're all NCOs, right? They're all E6 and up, right? So you're talking about a chief petty officer, a master chief petty officer, a senior chief petty officer, things of that nature. You're not usually dealing with even a warrant or any kind of 0 through 5 captain rank, you know, nothing like that. So these are people who used to be your peer and they have earned these titles, but they for whatever reason, you know, they were focused on the title. They got the title, and then something happened, you know, and you see those people in your life. You'll encounter them not only in a military setting, but in a business setting of any kind, where they're, you know, we used to call it skating. You know, Jeff, you and I have talked about that. Doc and I have talked about that. The three of us have talked about it, you know, where somebody, they get to a point and they plateau and they start to skate because
the complacency kicks in. Yeah.
It's easy to skate, right? And you're
I
focused on, no, you got to call me Mr. Ashmore. And, you know, I am so-and-so. But man, at the end of the day, you're not so-and-so. You put your pants on just like any other human being on this earth.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, and that's a big thing to me too, is, you know, I've never been a big deal with titles. And in my previous career paths with the companies, you know, I've worked my way up into different titles, but I always maintained a real even keel with the people that worked under me, because I understand that really a title is just a few letters thrown into a word or you know, a phrase or something. And really at the end of the day, if you lead by title, all you're really doing is demeaning the people that work for you, losing respect. And at the end of the day, no one's really going to follow a leader that just stands by and says, I'm this, so you have to do that. You know, the leaders that I've followed into corporate America or into war zones are the leaders that freaking get in the trenches with you. So, you know, let it be known and let it understand that your title may mean more to you than the people that are following you. So just keep that in mind, because your title is really not that important, right?
It's really not. It's really not.
It kind of brings some disloyalty too, which is our next topic, right? So you're trying to build loyalty, you're trying to build trust, and when you lose the loyalty of your team, I think it's self-explanatory what happens, right? Imagine losing the loyalty of your wife or your husband or the team that works under you. Man, once that's gone, it's real difficult to bring it back.
It really is. And it's very fragile. You know, that's something that I don't know if really it came into perspective to, you know, in business it's different because it's a different kind of team, right? And it's unlike a military, you know, and yeah, this is not just a military, you know, but it is a veteran centric and patriot centric organization. But for many of us where we have veteran backgrounds or spouses of veterans or whatever, and that is a much easier bond to make when you go through a, you know, search and rescue season, a combat exercise. That those bonds they form out of necessity, and they're very difficult to break, if not unbreakable in many regards. But disloyalty will break them. But in business, that is a much more fragile relationship. You know, the bond of loyalty, that the loyalty that you have built, the trust you have built. And I kind of got a rude awakening of that when two things happened, and it was in 2020. First, the anxiety about what would happen to the firm when I got hurt in South America. You know, I saw for the first time in, you know, when I got back to the office, you know, people were terrified. You know, they were terrified about what the future might hold. You know, I mean, if I were to, you know, not bounce back, so, you know, I feel it's miraculous how quickly I've come back from that. And it isn't quick, but it's quick. And
time goes by fast.
How much worse it could have been. And then right after, like not even 10 days after coming back from that injury, the coronavirus hit. So, you know, it's kind of like my team took it wasn't like jab, right hook. It was like sucker punch, gut punch. I mean, they were frightened because here all we, you know, you got young moms, you got older folks, you got a group of dynamic people, moms with kids, moms who care for elderly mothers-in-law, right? You know, they got 60, 70-year-old mothers-in-law living in their home with their young kids. Kids are going to daycare, husband's going to work, they're going to work, and they're all terrified about bringing home coronavirus. And what are we going to do about it? And will this job be here in 6, 8, 10 weeks? And that's immediately after the fear of, will my boss be here in 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks? You know,
so explain that link, right? Like you have all these people with all these different lives and all these different things. I like to call them structured chaos, right? That's what life is really all about.
It really is.
Where did you see how loyal your employees were at what point, and how much did it mean to you?
It meant a lot. And I think one of the biggest things you've got to do is you've got to exemplify decisiveness and, to some degree, fearlessness, but more importantly, a commitment to them and a commitment to excellence to them, right? I mean, when you give your word, I learned this from a buddy of mine who's a very successful attorney in Dallas, Texas, and I won't say his name, but it rhymes with Michael Bassett. Mike was an Army officer, and he's a pretty damn good guy, and except for being in the Army, but we'll set that aside. Mike has been a good mentor and friend over the years. In fact, Jennifer worked in his law office for 10 years, and you know, that shows the kind of loyalty that he builds in people. And one thing he told me when I first started doing this is he's like, your word is not your bond. It's sacrosanct. And your word, when it comes to payroll, is unbreakable.
Yeah.
You have given your word to help a family put food on their table. That is an unbreakable word. And, you know, just hearing that, you know, just that's a very basic thing, right? The selling of your time and labor for pay, which we've all done that in this world, but how significant that is to that young single mom who's got her 86-year-old mother-in-law living at home because, you know, she has to care for not only her 3 small children, but this, you know, mother-in-law, you know, this additional mom, or, you know, whatever the family dynamic may be, and how really, you know, structured chaos is. You're absolutely right. Like on any given day, man, somebody's world is completely upside down, and you know, you don't know what's going on at their home. And anyway, seeing that kind of the speed at which structured chaos went from, okay, we're managing this, right? You know, yeah, I'm hurt. I'm in a hospital bed. I still have my smartphone and my laptop, so I'm working kind of remotely in South America, and thank God it's close to the poles, because that means the cellular service is actually pretty good, because the satellites are at the North and South Pole. Hey, looks like we're going to get some drug testing online here in a second.
So what I'm taking away here for this is welcome Doc Rannigan. He, joining us real quick. So, you know, wrapping up the topic number 2, which is, you know, disloyalty is where some leaders fail and they lose that loyalty. Once you recognize that loyalty, you know, the next step really is to recognize your team's success, right? We've all been on teams, whether that's sports, band, military, you know, teams of corporate America, whatnot. You know, once you realize the team that you have is in place, and let me preface this by saying finding good team members, the people that you can trust, is a significant win for your business. So once you find that, you got to give the credit to your team, right? You got to stand at the top, and you got to take the shit that always happens, and you got to let that just be water off a duck's back, and just command your team and make sure that you're understanding how important they are to you. And, you know, you always hear in these segments when they, let's say you had a great football game or you had a great basketball game, you know, what's the common denominator? Let's say it's the quarterback. They always give the praise to the offensive line or to the defense, right? They're prime examples of recognizing that team success. So it's important that you maintain that and you don't lose track amongst the structured chaos of life and business, to make sure that your team knows you really, really appreciate who they are and what they do. You know what I mean? Taking all the credit as a leader and never giving any of the credit to your team, that's how you lose credibility. When you say, Doc? I can't hear a word you're saying.
Yes. I said no truer words have been spoken. They say people can't climb a mountain without utilizing of a team, right? And you have to be able to embrace that. We fell as leaders, but we fell together as a team.
Yep.
We're able to build each other back up as a team when somebody's not making those right choices, doing the right things, having that accountability partner screams as an example of solid teamwork. Like you stated, you can see it anywhere and everywhere in part of life when it comes to sports or a business team trying to get to the next level, a young group of people trying to launch a networking event or a networking group to make it off the ground and work. Taking your company to another level, you have to create a team of employees. But if leaders don't make failures, then we sometimes can't make better choices long term. Don't worry about all that. That's not me being the leader.
Hey, secure that mess over there.
I had the same thing going on over here, Doc. It's cool.
It's structured chaos, baby. It's called life. But I'll run with this one, Doc, because you're hitting on the next topic here, which is focusing on tasks and not on the people. And we as leaders work for our teams, not the other way around. So what you're saying is dead on the truth. Any leader that's in a leadership position that fails to realize that they work for the people that work for them, I mean, that is a significant point of being a leader. You have to understand you work for that team, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. If without being an active team member, without being that active team member, without knowing each other's roles and responsibilities, and contributing as a whole, it definitely is going to make the team.
So while in the same token is that when we say focus on the task and not the people, that doesn't mean forget about working for the people that work for you, for instance, right? But you as a leader, you still have to be mission focused. You still have to understand that you have a position, that there's requirements that are being expected of you, is I guess the best way to say it. So while you're, focusing on the team, focusing on keeping loyalty, recognizing their successes, you also have to focus primarily on the task. You have a job to do as a leader. I have a job in my business. All three of us do, and the tons of people we do. So the task at hand has to be met head on. Whatever challenges, whatever, that's the job of a leader, is to head on with those challenges, and then also just keep pushing forward, right? So in those crazy times, and we'll keep using our slogan today is structured chaos, because all of our days have been that way. Look, Doc Space, structured chaos, but he manned up, he made it. Casey, he's over there on Facebook or Twitter or something, but he's still working, right? So we're all still doing these things, and we're all managing this. When it gets chaotic, when it gets crazy, you cannot allow yourself to be reckless, which is our next topic, right? So you have to understand that when you're stressed out, and I'll be honest with you, I'll be completely transparent right now. When I get stressed, I turn into like asshole mode. I've done a good job in the last couple of years of reining that in, but you could probably have hours worth of conversations with my wife about how that level creeps up, and that's what I turn into. But with the mentorship with my friends and the leaders that I kick it with and I surround myself with, I've been able to restrain that. So explain to me one time where maybe you lost your cool, guys. It doesn't matter who can speak up here, but where you lost your cool, and then what you did to fix that, because we want to focus not only on the issues of what leadership, brings, the failures that we have, but how did we fix that? You know what I mean? So you had a moment, you blew up. What did you do?
So I'm going to tell you.
Man, let me count the ways. Go ahead, Casey.
Yeah, right.
Like a failure leadership situation. I was a young supervisor, and I had a employee who was more and more problematic every day. And I was convinced, because, this was post service and I'm working my way through college, but I was working in a rough part of town in Houston, a drug part of town. And certainly at night it could be that way. And this guy was a driver, came in to work, and he was completely off his rocker. I thought he was drunk or high on crack cocaine. And anyway, long story long, I disciplined him, and I was like, you need to get it together. You're, underperforming. I didn't say it as nice as I'm saying right now, because we're on the Facebook. But I was, I wasn't exactly drill instructor, because this was private business, but I was pretty close. And he went and tried to perform his job, and then he came back and he passed out, and I was furious because he was, in my opinion, drunk on the job. I could smell alcohol on his breath. One of my coworkers called 911 because we didn't know what else to do with him. His wife wouldn't come get him because she was stuck at work. She was a nurse on the other end of Houston, and PD and first responders came, and they smelled alcohol on his breath, and they immediately did a test for diabetic conditions, and he had alcohol ketones on his breath because he was diabetic and didn't know it. He was only 29 years old, but they immediately spotted the signs. Probably be like calling Doc into the room, right? You got a guy whose hair's falling out in patches. He's got alcohol ketones on his breath. He's generally been a good performer at the job, and then over the last couple of days, he just hit this meteoric slump where we all thought he was drinking on the job. And that was a test of leadership, and I failed it. And I learned an indelible lesson then. Don't jump to conclusions. You need to get all the facts first.
Yeah.
And then go ahead with whatever your course of leadership should be. It should be decisive. But I was going to go down the road of writing him up, getting him terminated for drunk and disorderly. You know, I was going down a path with this young man.
Yeah.
And I was immediately corrected by first responders who, you know, put the little finger prick, did some sort of sugar test on the saliva. And, you know, next thing you know, he's on a gurney with an IV of drip water, you know, on his way to get health care.
That's all right. It's all good.
So reckless chaos, man. If I've been down that road more times than I want to remember, not only you don't look at, for a long time, I didn't look at myself as a leader. I really didn't. I didn't think I carried those characteristics. I didn't think that that's who I was. I always just thought I'm just Mike. I'm in the background. I'm doing my own thing. I'm creating. And little did I know that there was people watching me grow.
Always.
And making poor choices and making good choices. And they say that men typically really begin to hit that maturity level about age 35 or so. Some of us maybe a little bit earlier, some a little bit later in life. But when I hit my mid 30s, I really noticed a new outlook on who I was and how people began to view me. But the problem was I still had the same mindset that I wasn't a leader, right? And little did I know, well, people were looking to me to be a leader, and I was still reckless in some of my ways, and my temper still wasn't fine-tuned to where I could take a few steps back and breathe a little bit and take the big picture in, right? Yeah. I would try to hire employees, and I would snap at them because what I thought was simple was not simple to them. Right?
Yeah, great point. Great point.
And man, I'd be like, how can you, I mean, what do I need to do? How do I dumb this down? How do I Barney style this shit for you to be able to wrap your brain around? Take a cup, tell them pee in it, do this, do that, do the other. This is not rocket science, right?
Yeah.
And so then I had to take a step back and go, well, if I'm the guy, who said, what's the common denominator? Well, it was me. I wasn't putting in the effort and taking the time out of my day to properly train them on those techniques and do the repetition and do that. Instead, I was just short-sighted and very temperamental.
Well, let me ask you this. Does that kind of tie into having like a dedicated plan? Because as a leader, your job is to plan, strategize, and organize, right? That's kind of the way I look at it in my leadership experience. You want to bring in people, your business grows, you got to have people to do the work. I'm feeling this pain right now. That's why I'm bringing this up. But as a leader, not having a dedicated plan is one of those, what we're calling failures in leadership, right? So leaders are paid to think, plan, and not do, right? That's it kind of sounds weird, right? But we're paid to think and plan and not do. But good leaders actually do with you, right? But what we're trying to drill down on here is that as a leader, a dedicated plan on how you lead, you know, whether that's books, whether that's knowledge, whether that's mentorship or whatever. If you don't have a plan as a leader, reach out to your network, reach out to some of the people that are doing better than you in areas. I reach out to 4 or 5 guys that on a monthly basis asking questions. 2 of them are sitting here on this video call right now. So, successful leaders should never be too busy to plan, strategize, and organize. Those are key factors within your role.
I love the old analogy, right? Failure to plan is planning to fail.
Every time.
Right? Every time. But what I forgot to do as a leader was tell the people to plan. Right? I failed to show them the plan. I failed to dive deep into the plan.
Yeah. Well, your plan should include sharing the knowledge, right?
It should.
Leaders are supposed to make other leaders so we can step down and they can excel. So you're spot on there, man. But sometimes we often, and I'm doing this now, business is growing for me. I'm looking for, ways to streamline certain things. I'm picking up new, different tools in my toolbox to provide better services to my clients. And luckily enough, this is kind of hitting home for me today, because I was able to sit here for a couple of hours in this chair and look at my board and look at my pipeline and plan. I had been so busy, go, 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 estimating, walkthroughs, jobs. And then I look up and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I got to plan the next 2 weeks because I have jobs. So always take the time. And this is a leadership failure on my part. And I do it frequently because I get moving and grooving, man. But you got to take the time, and you got to sit down, organize yourself, strategize your next move, and you got to stay with your plans. So involving the next topic, which we'll jump in right quick. And I think I'd like to hear Casey's input on this, because I don't know, this one stuck out to me. I feel like he's got some golden nuggets for us here. Leadership politics. Tell me what that term, that title means to you. Leadership politics. What does that mean to you?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what it meant to me as a young boot coming up through the guard.
That was like 54, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, that was back when Jesus had just gotten out, and Moses was still, no, not really, but it was Skinner and Doc back when the boats were made of wood and the men were made of steel. Anyhow, what drove me nuts about leadership politics was
what does it mean to you first?
What it means is the opposite of the ass kisser in chief. And one thing that I hated,
that's what I was looking for.
One of the reasons why I went into business for myself is because there are not many things in this world that I will gift the word hate to, but I hate unearned advancement. Advancement not based on merit or work, but advancement based on kissing ass, favoritism, playing grab ass in the locker room with the girls, or whatever the hell it is. But when I'm going to tell you what, I've only ever worked in one place where that kind of an advancement was not tolerated. And that was when I worked for Judge Barbara Hervey at the Court of Criminal Appeals in Austin. She didn't play that shit. There was no ass kisser in chief advancement over there. You either performed or you're gone, right? I mean, she didn't abide non-hackers, and she didn't abide kiss asses. But I worked in other places, in the military, in private sector, this, that, and the other. Maybe one other place, Mike Cassell, when I worked at that heavy truck shop in Houston, Texas, he didn't abide that. He was all about performance-based advancement. But he heavily incentivized his employees. Like, how do you incentivize a technician? You got all these 18-wheelers and heavy trucks coming in there. Well, they get paid by the job, but how do you incentivize them to do their job better? He incentivized them because he gave them a commission. If they had 0 returns, they got paid extra money. We only ever had one technician, and then he was our head technician. In three years, he had 0 warranty jobs and 0 returns. You know how hard that is to do when you're working on 10,000 trucks a year?
Yeah, that's
200 or 300 tractors a year, And I mean, like, I'm not talking about trucks and trailers. I'm talking about farm tractors. Anything with a diesel engine used to come into that shop on Produce Row in Houston, Texas, and we would fix it. School buses, University of Houston, Texas Southern University, Metro buses, UPS, FedEx, we did it all. And only Richard Whiteman had 0 returns. The other technicians could not keep up with him. He was a perfectionist because he wanted that bonus money. Just like number 88, the playmaker, right? Hey, why was he so good? Why was Michael Irvin so good? And just about anybody who's worn 88 for the Dallas Cowboys, because the yards after the catch, the extra touchdowns, this, that, and the other, they get bonused on that.
Yeah.
And, that has a lot to do with motivating merit-based performance as opposed to, oh, he's my favorite. Hey, somebody, you've heard the joke, man. Hey, why don't we put blinkers on so-and-so's face, so that way when the boss takes a right or left turn, he knows that, and he won't collide and go up his butt. Or, the old joke, hey, that guy's a company man. He's such a kiss ass that you could stick a broom up his ass so he could sweep the hall as he walks down to the coffee pot.
So you don't like kiss asses? It's kind of what you're saying. Doc, I want to ask you a question. I want to read you something that I wrote when I was kind of putting together all this, and I want your input on it. Leaders should focus on doing excellent work and managing their team. What's going through your brain with that statement?
Leadership and developing and managing your team.
Leadership should focus on doing excellent work and managing their team, and correlate that to the politics of leadership. You know, we are self-employed. We don't have leadership politics. So this isn't really for us, but we've been in those situations. There's a ton of folks that are RVBA members right now that don't own their businesses, that work for, let's call it the man or the woman, whatever you want to call it. What does it mean when you're supposed to be focusing on the work, but also managing your team? How do you?
I mean, that's a huge question, and it's a lot deeper than just the question itself.
Yeah.
I mean, we were put into positions of leadership, and in the service when I worked for Baylor Dallas with cardiovascular surgeons, RNs, nurses. I mean, so I've been in that corporate environment and structured environment. And if you look at, I would sit back and looking back now and looking at those people as leaders, I'm shocked that they didn't kill anybody, right? Because they didn't focus on being a leader. They focused on the credibility, right? They focused on the recognition. You know what I mean? And I think that is extremely important when becoming a leader, is that you need to be excellent at being a leader, but you have to give all accolades to your team.
Yeah.
Right. Because I think that the two are cyclical, right?
Yeah.
If the team isn't doing well, it's not the team, it's the guy who's overseeing the team. If corporate isn't fun, I mean, take what's his nuts, Donald Trump, right? He will fire you in a heartbeat, right? If that team member is not being a team player, then he fires you, and that's a quality of an excellent leader. The no bullshit. If you're not going to conform, then you got to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that brings us into our kind of our next. I love how, I love how our conversations, they kind of end up just working themselves together in the way that we kind of put these things together. What you're talking about is leadership style, and there's books upon books upon books on leadership style, but the worst leadership style. And I learned this through my project management professional certification and all this stuff. And it's called fear and intimidation leadership style.
Oh, it's horrible.
We've all had them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
If you ranked the top 3 or 4 leaders that you've ever worked for, it's more difficult than picking out the one asshole leader. Would you not agree?
Yeah. Well,
Can
it's
you
easier
remember the one that you're like, that guy was a shitbag?
Yeah. It's that leader that remembers the most, that resonates in your mind. Yeah. Man, I never want to work underneath that cat.
Yeah, because
that's why I left corporate environment. I said, I'm not working for you. I'm not working for this donkey. Yeah. I'm not going to do all the work, right? I'm not going to let all your team do all the work. And then he sits back. Thanks, guys. I'm going to go turn this into the real boss.
Yeah.
And then he turns around, and I can't have that. And you're right. That is probably the worst type of leader out there known to it. But fortunately, those leaders typically don't last very long.
Yeah. Well,
because the team kicks them out.
Well, and that's true. But you also can go back to what Casey was saying 2 minutes ago. Those leaders sometimes stick around for a very, very long time because they got the blinkers on their faces, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you right now.
Got smudges on their nose.
Yeah. I mean, I'll break it down real simple for you guys. If you're leading by fear and intimidation, you really got to take a look in the mirror. Forget about what you're doing as your job or your career or whatever. If that's your leadership style, that is a character flaw, and that's in here and nowhere else. And if it's going to be real simple to find if you're leading by that way, because people don't come to you. They don't bring new ideas. They don't confide in you as a leader. The moment your team goes quiet, that's when you have to start worrying. That's the moment you need to ask yourself, what's going on?
On the flip side, if you're a good, strong leader, you need to be able to impose fear. You need to be able to command respect. You need to be able to be able to stand up and fight for your team. So you need to be able to have those qualities of being able to intimidate, being able to be arrogant. They're not poor traits. It's just how do people utilize those traits to their advantage? And there's a time and a place to be able to be that person that commands authority, that says, hey, get your shit together because this is what we're going to do. Because at the end of the day, people need those. There are people out there that if you don't put a boot in their ass, they're not going to ever do nothing.
Well, I would think you would almost consider that like a coaching style leadership, right? You got to be assertive as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not everybody can be a leader. There's leaders, and then there's, you know, guys that are just great at doing what they do. You know, you rely upon them for this specific task or a number of tasks, and they're not leaders per se for the title, but really they kind of are. So what we're trying to get at here is if you're using the fear and intimidation leadership style, you got to step out of the way of yourself, really what it comes down to, and take a deep look at who you are as a person, the character you are. And then, you know, don't be afraid. Ask your team. Maybe someone will tell you, but you know how it goes. You get let's do a team meeting. Everybody bitches and complains outside of that team meeting, but then as soon as they get inside that team meeting, everybody's quiet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll realize you're a good leader when you have those team meetings and people are talking.
Yeah.
I spent years with my last company, almost 8 of them. And everybody had something to complain about throughout the course of the weeks and months. The moment we sat inside the room where the owner and I would sit them down and say, free pass, let's get it all on the table right now, it was quiet. And the reason is because we had piss poor leadership. And I was at fault in some of that. I'll take that, you know, to whatever. So, but kind of segue into the next topic here is communication. So if you're in a room where people are talking, the buzz is vibrant, the people are bringing new ideas, or they're telling you constructive criticism, that communication is key. And it has to go both ways, right? So the lack of communication, that might, to me, I mean, you guys know me very well. I'm huge on comms, right? I mean, I was a field radio operator in the Marine Corps. Communication to me is imperative, no matter what we're doing. RVBA, my family life, my business, whatever. But you must know a plan. You have to know the plan, but then the key factor to knowing that plan is communicating that, right? So Casey, you wake up, you got this grand idea, no one knows about it. How does that fall on your team?
Well, I'm a believer in comms as well. Every day since the Rona, we have a 9 a.m. meeting. And while, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, man. I mean, we were, or the hoax Corona, whatever you want to call it, the Corona hoax virus. Anyhow,
media bug.
Yeah, but I'm a big believer in one-on-one meetings, and that was pre-Corona. That was how I handled business at the firm. And sometimes I would bring in everybody in the conference room. We have an open workspace floor plan, so there really aren't any secrets. Sometimes when meetings get ugly, you know, it's kind of like being a kid back at home. You can hear mom and dad fighting, or, you know, grandma and grandpa, you know, fight like, you know, you burned Thanksgiving dinner again. Well, that's because I had to wake your drunk butt up off the recliner. Whatever, you know, I mean, these little family dramas, there's nowhere to hide in an open floor plan office. So, but I think one-on-ones are very effective, especially with young people, because you got to know what it's like because they're closest to the work. And having a big,
that's a good point.
When you have a big, you know, 8 or 9 or 10 person meeting, you guys have all been to RVBA meetings. You've all been to American Legion meetings. You've all been to meetings in the Marine Corps. You've all been to meetings in private business, and you get these little idea fairies, or you have a consensus of nothing. Nothing gets resolved. Nobody's decisive. So sometimes the big global meeting is good, but in the age of, you know, Zooming and social distancing, what we're doing right now, you know, I do believe that you've got to find a way to make sure you touch every one of your teammates every day and let them know you love them, you care about them, you care about more about their professional and personal development than you do about the bottom line. There was a huge amount of disloyalty at a firm that I used to work at, and that was because it was like being on Twitter, right? Working there was a lot like being on Twitter. Like the only time you hear that you're doing something bad on Twitter is when people are raining hate on you, right? If you're putting good out on Twitter, you're never going to hear it. You might get a thumbs up or a like or this, that, and the other. But Twitter is not like Facebook and other social media sources where Twitter is all about being snarky. And there's a lot of negativity out there on Twitter, which is, not all of it, but a lot of it is. And this was a place where if you had a meeting with the boss or any of the managing partners, it was because you were underperforming and you were about to get some hate rained on you. And they were going to be talking about your resignation and things of that nature. So that's a very difficult meeting. Like you don't see the boss for 6 months. And the next thing you know, you're in the office getting screamed at the top of your lung. Binders and pencils are getting thrown around. And, that is disconcerting for a young individual. And I saw a lot of young paralegals, secretaries, attorneys walk out of that office and either quit. Very rarely did somebody tune up their performance. It was usually they quit because they're like, I am not going to be talked to like that, blah, 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 blah. Or, maybe they were stuck there out of desperation and they toughed it out so they could find that next stepping stone. But that was a very unhealthy way to have a meeting. And it was not, back to real quick, y'all talked about the different kinds of leaders. I remember hearing from one of my master chiefs, and in fact, my favorite master chief in the United States Coast Guard, Tom Baker. He said there's 3 kinds of leaders. There's weeders and groomers or cultivators, right? And he kind of analogized it to a farmer.
Is that Coast Guard math?
Well, like
you caught that, Doc?
They're trying to weed you out, right? They're trying to weed you out. You're a non-hacker. We're just going to weed you out, right? We're just going to cut you. You're going to come to your locker one day, like football practice, and there's going to be a red tag in there. If the red tag is in there, turn your helmet and your pads in.
Yeah.
Right. You keep the shirt. You paid $15 for it. You're gone. Right. Or you get the yellow card, right? The yellow card is you're down on JV and we're going to develop you. We're going to cultivate you. You're a little rough. You're not as fast. You got some weight to lose. You got to get quicker on the quarter mile, right? You've got to overcome your stone hands, or you got to play defensive back, right? Cultivate, develop, or weed and make people go. But finding quality people, in my opinion, is so difficult that like if it takes you 10 times as long as it would for you to do it personally, to teach somebody to do it exactly right, then it's worth it, because then you don't ever have to worry again about, hey man, I showed Jeff Skinner. I spent 10 hours showing Jeff how to do a project that I can do in 1, which means Jeff will do it right from now on. And I barely have to check his work, only to satisfy the customer that we are in fact a team and working together. And I'm not just turning him loose as my, or if vice versa, right? If I was Doc's understudy, right? Doc would spend 10 or 20 hours teaching me about drug testing or this, that, or the other. And Doc, sorry, I was a roofer for 30 minutes in Houston, Texas back in 1989. And I'm not going to be your understudy on that deal. But
I saw that you went to drug testing. He's like, well, if I had to go with which company am I?
Which one? We could literally do a segment on communications in itself because it's so important.
Sorry.
Right?
No,
I'm horrible. I am horrible at communications. I'm going to be real honest with you. I think it's the medical mentality. Like, you don't need me till you need me type thing. And so I don't think to communicate. And it's hindered me bigger than shit. I'll be honest with you guys. Yeah. It's made me suffer as a leader when I don't communicate effectively. And I assume that, they know what I'm talking about. They know what I want. Yeah. Right. When I started,
that is a doc thing. He knows what I'm talking
about. I'm like, you got this right. You understand. You're like, no, bro, I don't. I'm like, shit. Now I got to break it down. But that's
leaves people in the dark, right? We all try to hope that people can read our minds
Yeah.
because we're trying to get to the next task, right? We're trying to get to the next thing to do, but you have to break. Sometimes, like Casey said, if you got to show somebody something 10 times for them to do it right from here on out, that goes back to what we were talking about, taking a step back, right? And communicate. You can't leave your team in the dark. If we summed up the whole comms thing we're talking about right now, as a leader, you must have clear and definitive tasks. They have to understand the scope of work. They have to understand the expectations, and all of that has to be relayed through your communications. I was reading through the comments over here, and Rick Burness said it best. Those one-on-one meetings, that's how you really get to know your employees. You know what I mean? These team meetings, those are great for, hey, this is the global what we're doing. But, Doc and I sit down one-on-one, Casey and I sit down one-on-one. We all have a fantastic relationship, but we all have different relationships, and all of that is formed through communications. And one of the big things, which kind of leads us to our final topic here, is we are all about taking control and not having excuses. I posted something on the RVBA page the other day. It was like a couple guys rolling a boulder up this, and it was something
Love
like,
that.
maybe we should put this down and be a lot easier. And Doc said something along the lines of no room for excuses, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. It looks like he just skipped out on us, but when you're in a leadership position, your job, your whole mission in your leadership life is to come up with solutions. Excuses are for the weak. Let's just call it for what it is. I'm raising a 13, almost 14-year-old boy that's becoming a good young man. And I've always told him from the start, no one gives two shit about your excuses. No one cares about excuses. And if you can implement that at a young age, which I'm hoping to do, it's going to breed the leaders that we want to have, which are solution focused, right? So in order to be in a position where you're taking control, you got to do things like direction of others, executing plans, identifying scopes, scope of works, which are huge to me in my project and my business. And you have to head on those challenges. Tip of the spear type head. They're going to hurt sometimes. You're going to run into a brick wall a lot of times. But you know what? We've talked about this in our past videos. Fail, and try again. Fail, and try again. Lean on the people that, there you go. Failure's not an option, and neither are excuses. So, Doc, tell us what that means to you. And you mentioned it in the Facebook post. I want to hear your put on that. I can't hear you.
Comms, man. It's all about
Comms.
the comms.
It's all about comms, baby.
Comms, man. Speaking of comms, like I didn't even tell my own damn team that I got ran in behind and was late. Like like I'm horrible. Like I'm horrible. But I got other great attributes. But failures, that's one of the things I'm great at. And I'm also great at getting back up. And I'm great at getting back up and taking another 10 to 20 more steps forward. If I'm not failing, then I'm not trying hard enough, right? If I'm not failing up, right? Because that's what I call it. I call it to fail up, right? Because I'm trying to get to a place in spiritually, financially, and mentally, right? And the only way to get there is to go forward, and I can only fall forward, right? Yeah. I try my damnedest not to go backwards anymore in life. I've done plenty of that. So we actually need those things as leaders to be able to fall forward, right? And if I don't ever do that, then I'm not trying to make gains, right? I love to work out, but I'm never ever going to be able to bench press 315 pounds if I stop at 275 pounds, right? If I never fail at moving that weight, then if I never try it, then I can't know if I'm going to be able to make it.
You never push past it.
I got to be able to push past it. Yeah. So, and that's how we hone our plans, right? So when we get a plan together and we start taking action on that plan, I promise you, there's some things that we didn't ever think about was going to happen to our plan. And that's going to make that plan change, right? And that's a failure. When our plans fail, right, we got to go back, reevaluate, look at the big picture and say, cool, let's redirect fire, right? Let's change and let's move forward smartly.
But in that process, excuses should be completely omitted from that process.
Oh yeah, fuck your excuses.
If
Hey,
you
man,
fail,
I gotta tell you,
yeah, I mean, if you fail, like
I don't deal with excuses.
own it,
Right?
that's the thing. You know, you
I
have
can't
got
have
to, you got to take the position that everything in life is going to happen, and you've got to own it, and you got to take responsibility for it, because it doesn't happen in spite of you. It doesn't happen to you because you have bad luck or this, that, and the other. You have to own that. You have to be responsible for that. You have to take extreme ownership of everything that happens to you in your life, because otherwise you'll have this mindset, or you risk having this mindset that, oh, this happened because I couldn't land that big sale, or this happened because, you know, I skipped out on that last chin up, or I skipped out on
leg day.
putting 10 more pounds on the bench press, or whatever it was. But don't, you know, own those mistakes, those failures of your, you know, you hit a tripwire, own that, right? But don't blame that on someone else, because blame storming, you know, you're deflecting, and that is not the path to success. That is the path of,
And like Doc said too earlier, as you're growing in your leadership, you fail to realize so many people are watching, right? So many people are looking at you as a leader. You're scrutinized for the things you do. But when you, as a leader, are able to step in front of your team and own that mistake, own that failure of that project, or that over budget, or that, you know, scope creep, or whatever it may have been, immediate respect is gained, right? Now your team is looking at you and they say, wow, he took the blunt for this. I'm going to take the next one for him. I'm going to step up a little harder so he doesn't look like the asshole next time. So owning those excuses, man, it's invaluable to your leadership style. You have to understand, as a leader, there's a number of different things. And I urge you guys, go do some research on leadership styles. I'm not saying go crazy and take all kinds of courses unless you feel like you really need to. Take an hour of your day and just research leadership styles. There's about 6 or 8 of them that are kind of the key bullet points that are kind of globally, you know, across the board there. You know, authoritative, democratic, coaching, affirmative, you know, like we talked about, the fear and intimidation type leadership style. Go do your homework. Find out what kind of person you are, what kind of leader you are, and then find the weaknesses. Talk to your friends. You know, some of my best friends have called me out a number of different times, and I love it. You know, I love it. It helps me grow. And that's what we're all about here in the RVBA, is passing on knowledge from past failures to increase efficiency and success in the future. You know, we're a group of veteran and patriot-owned businesses. Some of us own our own businesses. Some of us work for great companies. But at the end of the day, the RVBA is here every time you need us. Us three that are on here, we always see our ugly mugs all over the social media. Call us, Facebook message us, get a hold of us. We're here to help you guys. If you're interested in the RVBA, you don't know what it is, man, reach out to one of us. Send the Facebook page a message. Say, what the hell are you guys doing? What are you about? Watch some of these videos. I mean, the Three Musketeers right here, man, we have a lot of cool stuff we're working on in the background, and we're doing our damnedest to make sure that we pass that on to you, because if we all succeed, it's because we all helped each other succeed. None of us have ever done this by ourselves. No one is successful on their own. True?
But you know what? We could have stayed by and made an excuse. Oh, I don't have time for it. Nobody's going to want to listen. Nobody was going to want to do it. All this self-doubt. If we would have sat there and ate our excuses, we would have never been able to make the failures, to make the growth that we've made with the RVBA, with our businesses, with your law firm, with our marriages, with everything else that we do in life. Because excuses will strangle you. Excuses will suffocate you and paralyze you and run you into a state of depression, of fear and anxiety.
Well, and then your team starts acting the same way, right?
Yeah, your team quits. I'm out. I'm out. I'm going to find another leader. I don't give a shit about this guy. Here's your excuse.
And I'm sitting here telling you right now, when I gave up my job, my career job last year, that is the number one motivating factor, is I lost the respect of the owner of the company based strictly off respect. And you can't get it back, guys. And if you're providing excuses for failures and you're not owning up to this and you're being disloyal and you're good to one employee and bad to the other one, it's a combination of a whole bunch of different things. That's why I say go do your research, find out what kind of leadership style you have and hone in on that. And always remember, every person that's under you, you're going to have to be a different type of leader to every one of those people. So,
I mean, I think we had some great messages here. First and foremost, I want to thank you, Jeff and Casey, taking the time out. Thank you for all the people that are listening and participating. Hey, we look forward to just giving back for what's so been freely given to us. So look forward to next Thursday.
Thank you, guys.
So,
Thank you.
You guys
for
stand fast.
having
If
me.
you got any questions, shoot us a message. Like we say, the RVBA is open to veterans and patriots alike. We're actually, Casey and I were just talking about this, and I'll just end with this real quick so we can all get on with some chow. We are looking for the next phase of leaders within the RVBA. We are looking for people who are excited about what we're doing, who have followed us, or maybe in the shadows that haven't really poked their head out. There are a ton of people that are members of the RVBA, and I'm challenging you, step up. If you're interested in helping out, we got a spot for you. And if we don't, we'll make something for you because we're all here to make each other better. So with that, we're going to sign off. Semper Paratus, right?
Semper Fi.
There
right.
you go. Hey, y'all enjoy your evening, boys. Go kill it on Friday.
Yep.